Oh, g'day everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Weekend Wrap, brought to you by CrowCast, of course. And a bit hard to get up for this one after the weekend. Shut up, intro music. Joining me tonight, as usual, is Nikki. How you going, Nick?
Yeah, I was let out of quarantine yesterday after a week with the lovely flu, and what did I do? I took myself to a football game. Really should have stayed at home.
Well, why did you bother? Seriously.
I know. The nephew was going, and then the other nephew came along, so I had more fun actually playing with the 1-year-old.
And Macca, how you going, Mac?
Oh, not bad, mate. Just watch the Crows embarrass themselves again and give them every reason for their supporters to demand an external review.
Yeah. There's not much doubt about it now, is there, really?
If they don't, then I would say, well, I won't be renewing my membership if they don't have an external review. And I would say there will be many others as well, because at the moment they're playing monkey games with us. They've got monkeys in there, and they expect us to follow them. No.
Well, I mean, we've talked about it before, and we launched it a couple of weeks ago on the Weekend Wrap, and mixed reviews. There's a section of the Adelaide supporter base that see asking for a review as disloyal and, not supporting the club and all the rest of it. But I think everyone now agrees, and I think, even the whispers coming from the club now indicate that there's going to be a review. There's just going to be a review. We can't avoid it. The club can't avoid it. But I would urge everyone to get onto aflcrowcast.com and click on the article that takes you to the petition or the letter, the open letter, and just sign it, because we're going to send it to the club at the end of the season. And I mean, there's about 600 signatures on there now. If we could get it to 1,000 signatures, I think that's a really meaningful number, don't you?
Yep, it certainly is.
Definitely. So, yeah, forward it, friends, family, anybody you know that's incredibly pissed off at the club.
Yeah, and that's the idea. There's a PDF link. People can actually download a hard copy of the petition and get people to actually sign it, and then they can send it back to us at petition@aflcrowcast.com. So I think it's worth it. People listening now that might have been sitting on the fence, I just think it's worth putting your weight behind this. And it's not a smash the club initiative. It's just probably another vehicle for the supporters to just indicate to the club what our expectations are of the club. And I don't think that's a bad thing.
Just a question. I can't find the Weekend Wrap on speaker for this particular game.
On what?
On speaker.
Hit refresh, Macca.
Yeah, hit refresh, Macca.
I've hit refresh 4 bloody times.
Well, it's on there.
I'm in the chat.
Everyone else is there. Anyway, look, while Macca's trying to work out his bloody technology, why don't we get into some scores, shall we? Another interesting round, ladies and gentlemen, and the hits kept on coming until right at the end here.
I got 3.
You got 3. I don't know how many I got, but it wasn't that many.
No, I didn't bother to check in the end.
Didn't bother to check in the end, Macca? You had a gutful?
No. Well, I was more interested in my dream team, and I'm in the grand finals with big money, so I'm happy with that.
Well, that's fair enough, I guess.
I don't get any money for tipping, so...
Don't you? It's all about the money?
Yeah, it's all about the money for Macca.
Well, where are you in your dream teams at the moment, Mac?
Well, I'm in the grand... I'm into the grand final in each.
For both of them?
Yep, one for 1,000. I'm only in 2, but I'm in the grand final of both. One for 1,000, one for 550.
That's pretty good going, because that's like, what, 3 years in a row now, Mac?
It is. Yes, it is.
It's not bad at all. Not bad at all.
You might actually know a little something about like football stats.
Well, you know,
That's why I watch every game, so I watch every player.
well, see, a lot of people say to me, "Why the hell do you have Macca on?" And you
I
know,
say that.
there's plenty of times where I think, "Yeah, you're right," you know. But then I remember that you actually know your shit, mate, and that's why you're here, and we love having you here. Let's get into the scores, shall we? Because what a weird weekend. It started off fairly predictably with Sydney getting up over Melbourne on Friday night. Sydney 15-5, 95-2. Melbourne 5 goals, 12-42. Margin there of 53 points. Hardly anyone turned up. Did anyone actually watch it?
I did watch it. Yeah, I did watch it. Look, it's a disgrace to have this game on a Friday night. And there is a little bit to be said for flexible programming. And I know it's very, very difficult because of the fact that the clubs make arrangements, etc., for various catering and all that type of stuff. But, when you're stuck with a game like this for Friday night, and that's supposed to be where you're showcasing the game, well, it's not good enough, really. Look, Sydney were good. They've got promise for next year. Melbourne were disastrous.
Melbourne were tanking.
So you reckon they are? You reckon they are tanking?
Who'd they drop?
They brought good players in.
Which ones?
Well, what they regard as good players.
Yeah, but they haven't been performing, so yeah.
Nikki, I would say that Goody has to perform next year or he will be gone.
Oh, no doubt about that.
Yeah, but they really want one of those midfielders.
Yeah, no.
Look, they made a major mistake. They had that the chap at full forward who they cleared to Fremantle. They've got no full forward.
No, that's right.
That's why Jenkins would be ideal as a trade to them.
Yeah, you're right, Macca.
I would be hoping the club is brokering that and we can get something for that big lug.
Anyway, let's not spend too much time on them. On Saturday, the Blues getting up again by 10 points. 11 goals, 12-78 to 10 goals, 8-68. Welcoming in the Teague train officially. And, didn't we miss a trick with that one? Bloody hell. David Teague, if you don't mind. Carlton just resurgent in the second half of the season. And there's no denying that David Teague's had a massive influence on that club.
Actually, I think this was something like 15th versus 16th or 14th versus 16th. But it was a quality game of football. It was very, very good football played this game. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. And Carlton are going to be scary next year. They're going to be good.
Well, I don't know about scary, Mac, but they're going to be good. I think they'll be Essendon levels of good next year. They're still... I mean, they probably get what's that lad that missed another season? No. The defender that missed a season. What's his name again?
Was it Doherty?
Doherty, that's right.
Yeah.
He comes back. They're probably a little bit light on still defensively, I reckon.
That's correct. But forward-wise, they've got some ammo up there.
They do have ammo. They probably need a bit more of a support cast for Cripps in the middle. Their midfielders are just getting... I don't think Murphy's got too much time left. But you're right, they're going to be around the mark. And even the Saints, I mean, it was the battle of two caretaker coaches with Ratton coaching St Kilda, and they've looked a little better since he's come on as well. I think the issue with St Kilda is more about talent. I think their recruiting and drafting has been woeful over the last 5 years.
Bit of truth in that.
Anyway, then match of the round, without a doubt, and it was a cracker. Brisbane getting up at the death, 10 goals, 15-75 to Geelong, 10 goals, 14-74, a margin of the barest 1 point, and sorry about the pun there, and the Lions just looking awesome at the moment.
Well, they have this ability to fight right to the death and to get up at the death, and which is the most important thing, I guess, if you're in the close games and sitting on top of the ladder. And this was a club that was on its knees about 3 years ago, and 3-4 years ago. They stole our football department guy, which was Noble, who I always rated. A lot of people didn't. and he's done a great job up there. They got themselves a decent coach, they got themselves a decent support, and they got themselves. They've got rid of some players, they've got new players in, and they've developed a good football side. And Adelaide, please take note of what Brisbane did.
Well, I mean,
they had a lot of AFL support to turn that club around because it had to be done. Otherwise, they're in serious trouble in Queensland in terms of men's football. But on that game though, Geelong still had a chance in those last 30 seconds to win the game. Like Radaglia had that shot on goal, that snap, which quite possibly could have gone through other times. But yeah, that I watched the last quarter and it was definitely match of the round.
Yeah, it was a cracker. And, I don't think... Well, clearly Geelong are beatable. I think Richmond and West Coast are the two standouts. But Brisbane are in with a sneaky chance. They've got a young group, but they've got some real talent. And they can score, and they don't go away, like Macca said, led by two Adelaide stalwarts, if you don't mind, in Charlie Cameron and Jared Lyons. Aren't we glad we gave those two away? I mean, I know we ended up with Fogg for Charlie's pick, but we probably could have manufactured something to get Fogg anyway. But lowballing Jared Lyons, I was critical of it at the time, and nothing has changed my mind since. He's just one of those workmanlike players. He's everything we would have wanted Richard Douglas to be, I reckon.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Got rid of the wrong bloke.
Yeah, well, he's not overly quick, but he gets the agate, and God, he's turned into a hard unit, and he uses the ball really well. So yeah, never mind. Anyway, North smashing Port. Very disappointing from the Power, albeit that they were playing away. But allowing North to get away like they did, 22-12, 144 to 8 goals, 10-58, margin of 86 points, and you could just about say bye-bye Port for the finals now.
There were two things that came out of that game for me. One was that a few weeks ago, Kenny Baby said that you can't trust the side, they're untrustworthy, and they actually proved that to be the case again. Actually, there were 3 points come out. The second point was that they do believe their own bullshit, and they thought they could put a young rookie lad in the ruck against Goldstein, and Goldstein had the biggest picnic he's had for about 5 years.
Didn't he have a day out?
Yeah. And the third thing that came out of that game for me is North Melbourne aren't renowned as being one of the top sides, yet they played with such fierce desire to win the game. I just wish our players could play with that same desire, that fierceness to win. Just that, nothing is going to stop you, and that's something I took out of that game.
Yeah, there's a bit of a conversation around that we'll get to, Macca, because I reckon you've actually got to believe in what you're doing to have a bit of desire. The Bombers.
Excellent point.
The Bombers booking their finals ticket with a solid 32-point win over the Fremantle Dockers over there in Perth. Fremantle will be very disappointed with that. The Bombers getting up 13 goals, 987 to Fremantle, 7 goals, 1355. They're a margin, as I said, of 32 points. Rossi Lyon, he'd have to be in trouble now, don't you think?
He should be.
He seems to manage to bullshit his way out of it, but I'm with you guys. I think he's an overrated coach by a long, long way. An overrated coach. And if you really look back at his performances for the last few years, I don't think he's good enough, and I think his days should be numbered, but he'll probably get another year. He keeps on getting them.
And then today, a couple of good results and good games. The Tigers getting up 13-10-88 to the Eagles, 13-4-82 by a goal there, and solid win by Richmond, and they're really staking a claim, I think, for this year's premiership. Yes,
they did. They played very well, and it was disappointing to me because I wanted West Coast to win, because Richmond have had all the advantages in the world given them that last 9 games in a row at the MCG, and then running into the finals played at the MCG. And I was just hoping, for God's sake, West Coast could get over. And I think they probably will if it comes to a final.
As long as it's not raining.
Yeah.
Well, it's a very good point, Nikki, because once it became wet, I thought West Coast were easily the better side while it was dry. And then as Nikki quite rightly pointed out, big tick for Nick, that once the rain came, it seemed to turn the game on its ear, and Richmond got their composure back and got on top, and a lot more little blokes, I think, there, Nick, and I think probably that's the key to it. Close to the ground, they get the ball, and I
was going to say, Barras helping them out. He gave them, I think, about 3 goals.
Has he been drinking?
We thought we had clangers in that team. Bloody Barras.
One of the biggest clangers I've ever seen in my life was the one where he turns around, he could have handballed up to a teammate on the boundary line. So he handballed straight back to the goal square to the opposition, and then jumps all over their neck to give a free kick away. And, no.
It was not his game, poor bugger.
Speaking of staking a claim, the Bulldogs, a massive win over the Giants, 19-12-126 to GWS, 9 goals, 11-65. They're a margin of 61 points, and I thought the Bulldogs might take it up to the Giants, but I didn't expect them to belt them.
Yeah, I had a sneaky suspicion. Because as I said, I only got the 3 tips this week, but when I was selecting them, we were talking about this just off air prior to coming on, that I was looking at some of those and I'm going, oh, actually, no, I reckon it could be Sydney. And I reckon actually, I thought it might be Bulldogs. And I thought, no, that's too many roughies. I'll just go with the safe bets. But there were so many of these games this weekend, I just thought, I reckon that could happen. And then once everything started falling, I'm like, watch the Bulldogs just do GWS.
Yeah.
And yep, they did.
Yeah, sure enough.
Yeah. Oh, look, the Bulldogs again. Look, if you went for natural talent, looking at and Park in the midfield above the Bulldogs, I reckon there's more natural talent in the GWS side. But I do think they have to change their coach, because I don't think he can. They don't have a hard edge, do they? They just there's a softness about them when they're put under pressure. And the Bulldogs, I actually did tip the Bulldogs because I thought that they're on a wave at the moment. They're on that, well, I'm talking about that irresistible football wave where they totally, like you said, they totally believe in what they're doing, and they're prepared to die and run in and do it, and they're smashing hard, and the Giants aren't that good at that.
I think it's been our constant criticism of the Giants, hasn't it?
Yep.
Talent, but not tough enough.
Just don't have
and they seem to.
It's that passion, isn't it?
Yeah, but we actually thought they'd turned that corner earlier this year, and they had started to show signs of it, but now they've gone back in their shells again, and it's frustrating.
They were soft today.
Well, and again, another coach where despite good talent and, overall good results, considering the amount of ability he has under his charge, you've got to question whether Cameron is the right coach to actually get them that next level to a flag.
I am totally convinced he's not. Totally convinced.
Anyway, that leaves us with a very interesting ladder. With the Lions now, unbelievable, and what a last round coming up. The Lions on 64 points in front, with Geelong, West Coast, and Richmond sharing equal second spot, just separating on percentage. Although Geelong looked to have the edge on percentage over the other two, so you'd imagine that Geelong will finish 1 or 2. You'd imagine that Brisbane will finish 1 or 2. Brisbane have a very tasty game against Richmond coming up in the final round. Geelong are playing Carlton. Of course, West Coast are playing Hawthorn, and Hawthorn can be a bit of a bogey for West Coast. And as we work down, Collingwood now out in front of the also Rans in the top 8 on 56 points. Then you've got the Giants and Essendon equal on 48 points. And the Bulldogs now a game clear in the 8 on 44 points and 105.6. Well, and not only that, the win was so big that the problem with the Bulldogs was their percentage, but they've pretty much fixed that up. They're 105.6 now. They're 2.6 above Adelaide in terms of percentage. Notwithstanding we play them next week, so percentage is not a big deal. But Port Adelaide 103, also on 40 points, and Hawthorn on 40 points, 106.6, but playing West Coast. So the Bulldogs only have to win, and they're in. And no guarantee, even if they lose, depending on other results, whether they drop out. So just a massive second half of the season for them. Out of the 8, as I mentioned, Hawthorn, Adelaide and Port on 40 points. North can't make it now on 36. Fremantle also on 36 with the St Kilda. Sydney down at 28 with Carlton. That could go... Sydney have got the Saints and Carlton have got the Cats. So it looks like Carlton are going to finish in third to bottom in 16th spot. So that gives us pick 3.
Which may or may not go to pick 4.
Well, may go to, depending on priorities and whatnot. But as it stands at the moment, that gives us pick 3. And they get pick 10. So probably not the disparity we would have hoped for, but still pick 3 is pick 3. Melbourne on 20 points. It's extremely disappointing season for them, and Gold Coast unlikely to win next week against the Giants. Stone motherless last on 12 points. Just a fascinating round of footy coming up. I'm actually going to bring the ladder predictor up for next week for those people that are watching on Facebook or YouTube, because it looks like, as it stands at the moment, what's going on here? As it stands at the moment, I've got, with my predictors, I've got Collingwood beating Essendon. I've got Sydney beating Saints. I've got North beating Melbourne. I've got Geelong beating Carlton. I've got the Giants beating Gold Coast. West Coast beating Hawthorn. Bulldogs beating Adelaide. Richmond and Port winning, which basically ends up with the Bulldogs in 7th spot, Essendon in 8th, and Adelaide all the way down in 11th spot.
Bloody brilliant. What a great season.
Hawthorn are still a possibility of getting in the 8, so I'd give them a very good chance against West Coast.
A chance, Nikki, not a very great chance.
No,
because
they've had some ding dong battles, those two.
They have,
but they're playing in at West Coast home, so you'd have to think West Coast, particularly after losing today, would really be they'll be wanting to win too. So West Coast for me there.
Yeah, look, I think it's set. The only way we get in is if we beat the Bulldogs, and look, the way we're playing at the moment and based on form, you just can't pick us. So I think the 8's set. I think the Bulldogs have made it, it's a pretty weak second half of the 8 on that basis. I don't think, despite Collingwood's form against us, I don't think the second half of the 8 is all that strong. Bulldogs are probably the most informed team of the lot of them, actually. Essendon a bit up and down. GWS a bit up and down. Collingwood with injuries and also a bit up and down. So I'd say the Premiership race is out of the top 4 without stating the bloody obvious.
Yep.
No, I think you have Collingwood a minor chance because we did play them into some sort of form.
They played themselves into that form.
Oh, Nikki, we helped a lot. Look, I think you're right though. I think the Premiership winner will come out of the top 4, but Collingwood might go a little. They'll get up to prelim stage, I reckon.
Anyway, that's it for Around the Grounds. Let's talk about the bloody shitful performance that Adelaide put in, shall we? Well, after half-time, it was an absolute disaster for Adelaide, and Collingwood running away, kicking 12 goals 7 to 4 goals 6 after half-time to run out comfortable winners. 17 goals 12, 114 to 6 goals 12, 48, a margin there of 66 points.
Should have been more.
Wow.
Total embarrassment. It was a total embarrassment.
I don't know what to make of it. Look, I felt like the first half we actually played with a bit of heart.
Yes.
The effort was there. I thought game plan was lacking, but I felt like the effort was there. But in the third quarter, it was diabolical. The third quarter was diabolical. We forgot how to play football, and then it was all over by then.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing was, we brought in the two ruck system to try and neutralise Grundy because he's a match winner. Ironically, he had more tap outs than our two combined, I think. But
Macca, we didn't bring in the two rucks to nullify Grundy.
No, we didn't. We did it so that Sauce could have his 200th game at home.
Absolutely right. Absolutely
correct.
right, Nikki.
Absolutely correct, but I'm talking about theoretically.
Yeah.
Theoretically, that's what it was supposed to. That's what they were saying. That was supposed
to be. A load of rubbish.
And look, the 200th is over, and that experiment is over as well.
Yeah.
And when they were rucking, when you actually had both of them up against Grundy, the one who was actually slightly effective against him was Rob, not Sauce.
Well, and yet they persisted in starting each quarter with Riley O'Brien, with Sauce as the number one.
And the slowest midfield of all time. Crouch and crouch.
Like this game really highlighted to me how bereft of ideas our coaching panel really is, because that there was effort in the first half. I felt like the effort over the last 2 to 3 weeks has been pretty solid. And effort doesn't equate to wins, but I felt like the intent from most of our players was there for most of the time over the previous 3 weeks or so, 2 weeks. But when you implement a game plan that places no emphasis on actually moving the ball forward, what do you expect? I mean, what we basically did, as far as I could see, was chip the ball around and allow the opposition just to creep further and further up until such time that there was so much frontal pressure that we just ended up turning it over and they kick a goal. And it was just rinse and repeat.
It worked that way. Exactly what you just said. We, instead of trying to make some real fast attacking break that might catch them out of position, we would go sideways, backwards and forwards, looking for that little out, which was never going to come in most cases. And as you say, but retreating all the time till eventually you get a Hardigan or somebody else do a kick straight at the opposition and they get a goal. And it was that was even in the first half. And massive effort. I think, like, physically we were trying our guts out, but the game plan is just rubbish, absolute rubbish.
I just don't understand how you can implement such a dour defensive game plan. And the interesting thing was that Collingwood came out and played a similar game to us in the first half. It was very much a tale of two half-back lines, and everyone was in lockdown mode and no one wanted to take any risks and all the rest of it. And then Buckley flicked the switch after half-time. He created space in his forward line. He isolated one or two blokes. He opened up his forward, Elliot in particular, opened up his forward line. He also created space around the contest. And all of a sudden they started using the corridor a little bit more and kicking it into an open forward line. Now, at what stage do you think between the 10 sets of eyes in the Adelaide Crows coaching box would you have thought, maybe we just need to do something about this one-on-one matchup that Luke Brown's getting towed up with?
Yeah.
Like,
poor Brownie.
It was just unbelievable. At no stage did we try to counter it.
Look, it just showed how inept they are, how bereft of ideas they are. I mean, our forward line, 9/10 of the time, if we ever were in attack, looked like they were holding Woodstock in there. There were that many people. But the ball goes down the other end, and you've got Elliot there against Brown, and he's got about 100 metres all around him to work in. Yeah. Absolutely bananas.
And Elliot is an amazing forward.
Well, I mean, he's good enough.
Absolutely. Yeah, oh yeah. And and we know that Luke Brown's actually very good and he's very quick. He made him look so poor. Because that delivery, he goes my fluey tongue there. The delivery they were giving to him was to his advantage every single time. It was just brilliant.
Well,
but
there's
the
not a
thing is,
defender in the game that is going to win one out when the ball is coming in like that. And all they got to do is kick it to space, kick it to his advantage, which is what they were doing. And Lukey Brown's got no hope in that one. So, I mean, I don't blame Luke at all. It was just terrible coaching by Adelaide. Terrible coaching not to address that. And not to also take the lead from Collingwood and see, all right, the game's opening up. We need to start being more aggressive with our own ball movement. You know, we just continue to go side by side by side by side, and then we'd run out of options and kick it long to what generally turned out to be an outnumbered contest down the line, and then the ball would be run back through and we'd be scored against. Yep. It was just that on repeat.
And yet, we're watching a slow midfield.
Very slow. Nikki, you stole my line there.
They finally moved Brodie Smith out of the back lines and put him into the midfield, either on the wing or then he went into the midfield in the third quarter.
Yeah.
It took them till the last quarter to put Chase Jones in the middle. What happened when he went in for those 2 times? He got the clearance both times because he moves.
Well, that's a good, very good point, Nikki. The only criticism of Chase Jones, you know, in that sense, that I think he did a good job, but he's learned how to do the 5-metre kick that we do.
But that's coaching, Macca. That's coaching.
Yeah.
That's game plan.
I'm being sarcastic.
He was actually trying to keep it low and direct to break that Collingwood
I know.
line.
I'm being very sarcastic here.
Yeah. So everybody around us just started to going, oh, there are 4 goals and it's all from Chase Jones. It's like, at least he's freaking trying to move the ball on fast.
Yes. And no criticism.
Yeah.
No criticism.
Look, I don't think I actually saw players second guess themselves when they went to kick the ball long into the forward line and actually check themselves and try to hit up short passes. And Wayne Miller did it once or twice. Try to hit up short passes after initially you could see that he was going to kick it long into the forward line and miss his short pass target because they're just. I don't think the players believe in what. This is my take, right? I don't think the players believe in what the coaches have got them to do, and I don't think the coaches have got enough confidence in the players to open the game up. So you've got a coaching box that thinks, rightly or wrongly, that we need to play a dour defensive style of football, otherwise we're going to get blown off the park. And we've got the players who are thinking this is so far away from our normal, natural game style that they're not buying in. And what happens is they try to play that game style, they fall further and further behind, and then they just, in the end, you can see them mentally just throw their hands up because they've got nothing left. They've got nothing left to offer.
Yeah, you're quite right, because in the first half, as you quite correctly said, there was a great effort, if not done in the right manner. There was still great effort.
But there was signs in the first quarter, Macca.
But but it just got worse progressively, Nikki. And by the time we got to the last quarter, it was just going through the motion stuff. Nobody believed in what they were doing anymore.
No.
So I'm not sure whether it got shown on the TV or not, but I think it was their first shot on goal from Mark, which came about because Lynch didn't defensively run, and he was right near the player, but he gave him too much space, and we could see it because it's actually on the wing where I sit.
No, the instant you're talking about, Nikki, you're right.
And Brodie Smith started having an absolute go at Lynch as soon as the mark was taken.
Yes, he was happy to run behind him.
And Lynch was you could see him trying to have a go back, and Brodie was not having a bar of it.
Yeah. Well,
and
Luke Brown at one stage.
Yeah.
Luke Brown at one stage had a crack at the Crouch boys for exactly the same thing. Exactly the same thing.
We've gradually been, look, if you take the season up until the bye, we looked like a football team and we've gradually just degenerated slowly, game by game, into a bloody rabble at the end of the year. It's so embarrassing.
And it's so hard to get a form line on some of these blokes because the game style that we're playing, it sets certain players up to fail. Now, we're relying on Kyle Hartigan and Daniel Talia and Jake Kelly to be distributors from the back half. Now, I know that you're down on Hartigan, Macca, and I'm not a huge fan of Kelly, and all of us will acknowledge that Talia is not great by foot either. But on what planet do you rely on your key defenders to initiate rebound out of defence? Like it's all wrong.
But part of what that is that if you're watching it at the ground, is you can actually see the opposition will allow those players to be the freer ones. Opposition teams have identified, get the ball in their hand because we're easily going to get our numbers back. We cover off the players that we don't want to be getting the ball. And they do it every single time. They've been doing it pretty much all year, and we haven't been able to figure out a way to not give the ball to them and actually get it in the hands of the players that we want it in.
The thing is, though, Nikki, that's quite easily manipulated because if they're allowing Hartigan and Talia and Kelly to have free reign, then those players have got to get themselves into more dangerous positions. They've actually, you at some stage you've got to make the opposition accountable. You can't just let them sit back and dictate play and dictate where you're going to kick to and who you're going to kick to. And I felt like Collingwood did that pretty well. They allowed us areas of the ground that weren't dangerous to them.
They did.
And they covered our playmakers, particularly in that third quarter. And they completely dictated play. And it's very difficult for a player in the middle of a game to be able to sense what's going on spatially like that because you're involved in the play. You can't see it from a distance. That's where a coach needs to see what's going on and understand what the opposition coach is trying to do and counter it. And I feel like this whole mantra of backing the boys in and they've just got to try harder and they've just got to execute better and all the rest of it, that's the most simplistic thing I've ever heard from a coach getting paid, the best part of $1 million to coach a football team in the best competition in the land. If you're going to get paid $800,000 or whatever it is to coach an AFL football club, you're going to have to actually offer something. You've got to bring something to the table, don't you reckon? You're not just there because they've got to put someone in the seat. You've actually got to add value, and I don't feel like any of our coaches have added any value. The thing that I've noticed about this coaching group, and it was evident from the 2017 grand final onwards, is that they blame the players. And whilst the players can take some responsibility, absolutely, I don't think this coaching staff has actually held themselves up to be accountable at all, do you?
No, and we've actually, that grand final, we said part of the problem was they played players who were injured. Now, that third quarter, who was off the field for the first 12 minutes?
Yeah, oh, exactly.
Walker. So obviously he's not right, and he had to have not only the halftime break, but 12 minutes before he came on. And that actually shows you the leadership he actually has on the field. So whilst the signs were there and we were not good in that first half, the way he was attacking the ball as that lead-up centre-half forward, getting his hands to it, he wasn't always getting it down. He was often getting double-teamed, but he was really trying to do that and trying to get that ball moving forward. And you just kind of sense that there is that little bit of a lift when he's around doing that. He's off, and that goes away. They were just completely lost.
Just go back to what Fee was saying, though. What did you think there, Nikki, of Pike's speech at the end of the game?
I wasn't there. I was sitting on a bus.
So you haven't seen it at all?
Nah.
What do you think, Fee?
I actually think he looks a bit defeated, to be
I
honest.
thought so.
Here's what's going on in that coach's box, Macca, and it's maybe a little bit about Don, and we can freely admit that we're not close enough to the situation to actually know what sort of a coach Don is. We can only judge by what we see on the field. But here's what we do know: the Crows didn't have enough money to spend on a best in class football coach's box, despite the promises. So we've got 2 rookie coaches and a coach who wouldn't get a job anywhere else. So we've got Don Pike, we've got Scott Camprielli, who's supposed to be the senior assistant and Don's right hand person, right? He's also heading up strategy, match day strategy. And then we've got 2 rookies, one in charge of defence, one in charge of the midfield. And then we've got Benny Hart, who, by all reports is not great, in charge of our forward line. And what has ended up happening during the season, and we've got this from a number of sources, is that Scott Camprielli has had to spend most of his time managing Marty Mattner and Godden because they're rookies. They need guidance, which means that not only is he spread a bit thin, Camprielli, but he's also then not serving his purpose in being a senior assistant and right-hand person to Don Pike. It just seems to me that it comes back down to we simply don't have enough quality resources in that coach's box. And that's not a criticism. I'm going to not criticise any of the coaches individually because I don't know them. But collectively, as a group, it's a terrible combination of coaches. If you're trying to win a premiership, there's no other club in a premiership window at the moment who would have a coaching box so bereft of experience than we do. So I think that actually has a big part to play in not only selection, but also match day strategy, matchups, all those sorts of things, because they're just too inexperienced, in my opinion.
Well, that's all correct, but it also goes further than that, of course. And the one I raise all the time in Burton, not fit to be in the job and never should have been in the job. So the whole football department, and then some of the people that work for him, they're not good enough. So the whole football department was close to being one of the worst in the competition.
It is the worst in the competition, Macca. It is the worst in the competition. I don't think there's any
women's
doubt.
program out though.
No. We're talking about the men's here, Nikki.
I'm talking about men's. It's got to be. Well, I was thinking maybe Gold Coast might be worse, but if leave the Gold Coast out of any argument, we are the worst then, because if this is the brain trust, it's not there. It's just not there. I think Marty Mattner's done a reasonable job with the backlines. The backline,
but you wouldn't know, Macca, because yes, our defence has been excellent.
But I only go by what I see in terms of what they do.
But our backline has been excellent by and large, but it's also probably our most experienced zone, our most settled zone.
Yeah.
Brown, Hardigan, Talia, Kelly, Brodie Smith for most of it, Wayne Miller for parts of it. It's David McKay. These are blokes that have played in our defence for quite a number of years and are good players. Throw Alex Keith into that equation. So they should be playing well. And we've seen though that our defence has struggled at times simply because through volume of forward 50 entries and opposition getting on top of our midfield. So.
And streaming midfield, and with nobody chasing them down.
So you wouldn't know. The suspicion is that Mattner's done a good job, but you wouldn't know because how would you know? I don't see our defence has played any different. And don't forget that Marty Mattner is actually not in charge. It's not as simple as being a line coach these days. Marty Mattner, if I understand correctly, is actually in charge of our defensive movement. Yep. Which means that he has a role. Yeah, he has a role to play with our defensive movement in other in other zones at midfield and even our forward line. Now, defensively, our forward line has been shit, and our midfield haven't run defensively since 1999. So, so has Matner been good? And that's not a criticism of Marty. It's just it's too hard to tell, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's so obvious that there are a lot of problems that are going on there, and we finally really saw it exacerbated on field on the weekend.
Well, Nikki, you were at the game. Did you feel embarrassed that this was the team you barracked for?
Oh God, yes. I was actually, and this is a horrible thing to say, but I was pleased to see the amount of people, as soon as that siren went for 3/4 time, got up and started to leave. And it was just a constant stream heading out to me, because that was a sign, as much as you want to support the players and you know that the majority of them out there are actually trying their guts out, but it had to have that kind of physical showing of, we are not accepting this. And once again, this was like the second home game in a row where you can actively hear the crowd booing their own players. And that's such a rarity for an Adelaide crowd to do that.
Well, and, I don't even know whether they were booing the players, Nick. Were they just booing the whole situation? Just booing the game style, booing the...
Yeah, as soon as they started to slow it down, or a player went, I think at one stage, D-Mac got the ball and he went to look backwards, and almost the entire wing just shouted at him, "No!" And he looked forward again. It's like, so he was being coached by the wing of the crowd, just going, no, you're not kicking it backwards. We're not accepting that.
So, I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that we've got squad issues, but I think what's happened since 2017 is a de-evolution, a devolution of our attack. Deterioration. Thanks, Mac. Of our attacking game style, and for whatever reason, whether it be personnel or whether it be coaching or whatever, we've gone from being an aggressive, ball-moving, attacking, rebounding, fast-moving team to an absolute rabble who are trying to play this possession game of football, which worked for about 5 minutes until teams realised that's what we'd started to do. And we haven't been able to get near it since. But there have been games, and the Collingwood game was a one, and it reminded me again of the Hawthorn game over there last year, where we just couldn't get the ball over halfway. There were times against Collingwood where I just thought, we'll never get it into our forward line again, because we just did not want to kick the ball forward until it was a bailout kick down the line to a 2-on-1. And you could see with the camera angles, Nick, on the TV, they showed a lot of down the ground footage while we were going back and forth, and you could see that when Collingwood blocked off all our switch options, and which isn't hard to do when you're switching like snails, they just had a floater down the line because they knew that we would bail out down the line, and just about without fail in that second half, whenever we bailed out long down the line, there was a Collingwood player to chop out and be the third man up and take the mark, intercept. It was unbelievable. And at no stage did we try to move the ball any differently.
There was one stage where we actually got that switch starting to go quickly. And as much as I love Kelly, you're right, this is a problem with him, that he takes too long to make that decision.
Yeah, I know the one you're talking about.
He had the two players free. He had that further one, which would have, and Collingwood hadn't gotten across yet. We'd managed to get it over to him and actually gone from Talia to Hardigan to him. And he held it up and waited for the closer kick, not the longer one, down the line, out into space where Brown was free. So even if it wasn't going to be a mark, all he had to do was kick it near Brownie, and and that would have been a kick into the forward 50, giving us not those 2 to 3 extra players. Our forwards were generally going to try and counteract, and they couldn't.
Well, you take, for example, and Essendon have got a couple of players like Sard and the Irishman who can rebound so quickly out of the back lines that it doesn't matter how you set up behind them. If they can come out at that pace and with that determination, have a couple of bounces and go over the top of them, you can create chaos. But the point that Fiend's been making for a long time about Kelly, and he finally got me totally on his side.
Thank you.
Is well,
finally, Macca.
I've been trying to give you the benefit of doubt. There is no doubt. And Nikki actually quoted the one time we probably had the chance to do a quick rebound out of the back line after we'd done all the crisscrossing, and he just stopped and held it there. And I thought, no good.
He doesn't think quickly enough, and that's, that whole hand movement thing that he does to, when someone else has got the ball and he's like, slow it down. It's like, Jake, just because your brain can't keep up doesn't mean that's how we should move the ball. But that's reflective of how he moves the ball. But again, you just quoted, Nick, that ball movement, Talia to Hardigan to Kelly. Now, those three players should not be the players involved in kick-starting ball movement. There should be a Luke Brown or a Rory Laird or a Paul Seedsman or a Brodie Smith or a Wayne Miller who should be the person who gets the ball as soon as possible in those situations. Even if they have to do the old school run pass for the handball or whatever, they need to be the playmakers, not our key defenders. So we can be critical of Kelly and Hardigan, and, they do have their limitations. But, again, it's just lack of decent strategy to have the ball in their hands when you're trying to initiate a forward ball movement. It's just wrong.
Yep, there's no doubt about that. And look, we won't make the finals because we won't beat the Bulldogs next week. So that's the end of our year coming up next week, and so there'll be plenty of time to have a proper review, won't there? So let's just hope that they do do the right thing. And certainly Chapman is talking about retiring as the chairman. Surely he's going to leave us with a proper.
When did he say that?
Well, he on the 5AA, he was saying
when
that a couple of weeks ago.
He didn't say he was retiring. He said he was going to retire until poor old Bob Ford passed away. And
that's why he stayed on.
And that's why he stayed on.
Year.
No, he's not on for an extra year. He's on for an extra 3.
He's getting the next person ready to take over from him.
What a crock of
whoever
shit.
That is.
What a crock of shit. You don't need another 2 years to get someone ready. Piss off, chappie. You've had a long enough time. He doesn't need to get someone else ready. There's plenty of people that can chair a football club board. Piss off, chappie. You've had enough time. Just before we move into the stats, I'd just like to say a massive thank you to our sponsors, Ryan at Smith Partners Real Estate up there at Golden Grove. If you're looking to buy, sell or rent property anywhere really, but particularly in the northern suburbs, give Ryan a call. His agency is just growing from strength to strength. I think they've put on 2 new gun sales agents over the last month or so, so really kicking some goals up there. So get around Smith Partners Real Estate. We really appreciate their support. Also, the boys at Down to Earth Electrical for their support. They'll come out wherever you want for anything to do with electrical data or air conditioning. Our ongoing thank you to our silent partner Scorpus, who sits behind the scenes, wishes he could probably be involved more, but just hasn't got the time. But supports us a bit financially with various things, and we love his channel there, Hardware on Box on YouTube, if you've got any tech stuff that you want to have a look at. And most importantly, of course, the people that are supporting us with their hard-earned on Patreon. Can't thank you guys enough. And I'm just getting some stuff printed at the moment, so hopefully over the next month or so we'll be able to get a bit of merch out to you guys. But we really appreciate everyone's support this season. If you want to give us some support on Patreon, just go to patreon.com/AFL CrowCast or click the Patreon button on aflcrowcast.com. Ladies and gentlemen, let's look at some head-to-head stats, shall we? It's only 90 disposals difference between Collingwood and Adelaide. Collingwood 436, Adelaide 345. As you would thusly expect, uncontested possession. Like Collingwood
that was a bit like Stephen Rowe on 5AA. I think you just made up another word.
Yeah, well, that's all right. At this stage, everyone's just making it up. It was all uncontested possession that Collingwood had the wood on us over. They'd beat us at our own game. They used the ball far better. 144 marks to 95 bears that out. And a couple of amazing stats, really. We only laid 39 tackles for the match. And we only laid 6 tackles inside 50, and they were all in the bloody first quarter. What happened after quarter time? 6 tackles inside 50.
The ball didn't get in there?
No. Second quarter, there was plenty of ball in Adelaide's forward 50.
Yeah, I was startled by that fact, and it's just unbelievable. They couldn't lay one tackle in 3 quarters.
Come on. Unbelievable. Brodie Grundy belted us in the ruck duel. Just belted us. Nothing. But how's this for a stat? Did anyone realise we got 22 free kicks to Collingwood's 9 for the game? 9 free kicks Collingwood got.
I know.
I thought we were well served in that direction, except for one bad free that they got in front of goals, one of their early ones. But I thought we were pretty well looked after by the umps.
Except for whoever kicked Rory's hand, that kicking in danger against him, and Razor Ray's running right next to it. He had clear sight of it happening. No, that one wasn't a free kick. You're allowed to kick him in the hand.
Speaking of umpires, how's that number 2 umpire that was umpiring in the Brisbane Geelong game? Did you guys watch that game?
I've only seen the last quarter.
Only the last quarter for me too.
I saw most of the game, and I haven't seen a performance like that since what's his name nearly got Western Bulldogs over the line against us.
Panel.
Yeah, oh my God, it was unbelievable. This guy's umpiring was unbelievable. Anyway, we won the clearances 33-30 as usual. Nathan Buckley, all he did was just played ring around the rosies with the stoppages and just made sure that he corralled our outlets. So it was a pretty meaningless stat that we won clearances because we didn't really do anything with them. Particularly around stoppage, 22-18 around stoppage, but we didn't really do anything with them. We're always rushed. Rebound 50s, 38-32 our way, which is probably understandable given the fact that they had 57 inside 50s to our 38. And I think we only had like 18 inside 50s after half time or something. Unbelievable. As I said, contested possessions 128 to 137 their way. Uncontested possessions, we got obliterated 219 to 306. Our disposal efficiency was under 70. Theirs was 77. Contested marks 12 to 14.
Didn't they actually have more clangers than us, apparently?
Yeah, but that's because they had the ball 568 more times.
And they got a 14.
Yeah, and that to me was one of those nice little things of you would have thought that we would have had more clangers but it's where we had our clangers.
Well, I think you've got to work out clangers. You've got to work out clangers as a percentage of disposals. If someone on the Spreaker chat just get their calculator out quickly and just work out clangers as a percentage of disposals, and I think you find that ours was way higher than Collingwood.
What I would have thought.
Yeah, contested marks, as I said, 12 to 14 their way. Marks inside 58 to 19. They belted us in that department. And look, they won in Don's key stat of metres gained, field position, all that sort of stuff. Despite us having less of the ball, we turned it over more. The stats.
Which is why they had it more.
You don't even need to look at the stats because if anyone who just watched the game could just tell, like it was just about game style. It was game plan, 100%. And then at the end of it, the players just kind of like threw up their hands. So To me, that's it in a nutshell. There's not much more analysis that you can put on that.
No, like you, I had run my eye down the stats, and I thought lost. I wasn't even reading the titles. Lost. I thought, well, we got a winner. What's that? Free kicks.
Yeah.
The only one we won.
Yeah.
Pathetic. Oh, clearance is marginally, but as you said, not effective.
Yeah.
We got filtered in the midfield.
Yeah, that's the key word, effective. And midfield has not been effective for a long time.
No, not at all. And there's some key indicators once again. Let's look at some individuals, shall we? Seed played all right, 30 touches, 7 marks, 2 tackles, 5 inside 50s. Played really as an outside running player, and I thought he did it pretty well. Went 83% disposal efficiency, which is excellent. 680 metres gained, 8 score involvements.
He tried.
He did try, and I felt like for the first time in probably about a month, he actually looked like he was moving a little bit more freely.
Yeah.
No, he got a tick for his game, and it's one of the first ticks he's got for quite a few weeks too, by the way. But at least he did have a good game compared to his compatriots.
Yeah, well, Brody played well too, 29, 10 marks, 2 tackles, 2 inside 50s. Played a little bit more behind the ball, just turn it over a little bit more though, but 10 contested possessions.
Efficiency for him.
Yeah. I'm not quite sure why that was, because he's still got lots of metres gained, but I just feel like a lot of his stuff he was one of the blokes that was kicking long and having the ball turn over. I think.
He definitely was. He was one of them. I was disappointed in that aspect of his game. I was really pleased with the way he went about getting the ball, but his disposal, and admittedly at times it was under pressure. But
it was under quite a bit of pressure.
Not up to his normal standard though.
No, so I'm just trying to find a heat map. Someone mentioned a heat map on the chat, but I can't find the heat map. Anyway,
I was just going to say that for Brody, the first half he was predominantly in the back half, but then it was the second half he was more that midfield, so we'd play him on the wing, or he would then actually go into the centre square, the hit out. So then you'll get a bit more of him up forward.
Yeah, the 2 Crouch boys I thought were disappointing. Both had 24 touches, 12 and 12. Brad had 7 tackles. I thought he was effective inside, 3 inside 50s, 9 contested possessions. His disposal efficiency was 66%, 6 score involvements. I just felt like, again, a lot of his possessions or his disposals were rushed. And he's just not that type of midfielder at the moment, is he, who seems to be able to create. It seems to be a bit of a hot potato, and I don't know. I think Brad might benefit from another off season, to be honest.
Yeah, I think by his own standards, I thought he had a reasonably poor game.
Yeah, and Matt similarly.
Definitely, he had a poor game on Matt.
I was so disappointed because the previous week Matt had shown a lot of signs of returning to that role of distributor. He was using the ball well. He seemed calm. He seemed to have time. He was actually being creative with his disposal, and as I think we mentioned last week, it was the first time for 12 months that we'd seen Matt play like that. And here we are this week, back to his old self of kicking around the body and kicking it up in the air and missing targets and poor decision making. And I was just like, what the hell happened?
Yeah, mainly, the Crouch have been getting normally in the 30 odds, and between them getting 70, 80 positions. They didn't do that. And the positions they did get, they didn't do much with. So they're probably, as a combination, their worst game for the year by a long way.
Yeah. Tommy on the chat on Facebook he's been talking about how many ex-players, and he mentions that the staff page has been down. Tommy, I can tell you that the staff page has been down since the weekend after we started our petition, because I went to have a look at that to answer the same question. How many ex-players are in the club? And all of a sudden, apart from the board members, there's no staff listed at all. Anyway,
and just slightly digressing there, Fiend, is that Razor Ray in the chat has pointed out that Don Pike has called for a wide-ranging review of the Adelaide Football Club football department after their Collingwood shocker. Very interesting. The coach wants one.
Yeah, well, I just tried to have a look at that link and I couldn't find it, so I'll have another look afterwards. But interesting that Pikey would say that. He's got 2 years to go on a contract.
Yeah.
So you would think that with 2 years to go on a contract, he'd feel reasonably safe, because he would know that we don't have a huge amount of room in our football department cap to pay out a coach. So I would reckon, and I reckon one of the knock-on effects of this football cap is the fact that coaches may well feel a little bit secure mid-term. You know, Ken Hinkley would be another that'd be feeling relatively safe because of that. So Pikey, sorry, go on.
Sorry, I was just going to say I have heard on the grapevine that Pikey has nothing but contempt for Burton, and that's not me saying it. I've heard that on the grapevine. He's got no respect for him at all, and thinks that he's not competent. He feels like he's not supported properly in the football department.
Well, he's clearly not. He's not by Burton and he's not by Fagan.
No, and he feels it. That's why he's come out and said that.
And I know that we make fun of you, Macca, for the way that you talk about Burton. But Brett Burton has been a cancer in our club since he got here. And I'm quite willing to say that. He's been a cancer. He messed up our fitness department to the extent now that the reason why our coaching box has got rookies in it is because we had to spend double to try and fix up the mess that he created the year he came across.
Correct.
You know,
and he's turned the club into a laughing stock.
He has.
The media just uses for pot shots all the time.
He has. And the thing about Bird is that he's so bloody arrogant, and he used to be like this as a player too. He had a much greater opinion of himself than what he actually was warranted. But he is so bloody arrogant, and he is so dismissive of the fan base and the people that pay his salary. He's so dismissive. You know, I don't care about supporter backlash. You know, I couldn't care less. You know, there's one thing to try and stay the course in terms of your strategies and all the rest of it, but if you're so tone deaf to massive criticism, both from the media and also from your own supporters, you know, that's just arrogance. And if Burton is at the club next year, then whatever review they end up doing has not been appropriate or has not been effective.
Correct. He must go.
Yeah, and I felt like the body language between Burton and Pike, whenever I see those two together,
it's obvious.
More than obvious. And if you're Don Pike, who's a successful businessman, a premiership player, you know, came to our club as a very respected individual, irrespective of what you thought about his coaching methodology, came to our club as a respected individual in football circles, and to have his reputation tarnished because of a bloke like Burton, he'd be seething.
100%. And I'm sure if he has, as reported, called for that review, it's for that very reason, because, as I said, I have heard on the grapevine that he absolutely detests Birdman.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me at all. Anyway, let's crack through these a little bit more. Lairdy, 23 touches, but I thought he was relatively ineffective, to be honest with you.
Just a game.
Yeah, Tails, I thought, did all right, 14 and 4 for 18, took 11 marks.
Oh, I thought he'd been all right. I thought he had an excellent game. Yeah. Seriously, I really liked his game.
Yeah. Sloaney was quiet, but probably pretty decent to get out in the park, to be honest. Sloaney only had 17 touches, 6 and 11, but after that hit he got last week, I wouldn't mind betting that his cheekbone was a little sore. Eddie Betts...
And they kept going after his head too.
Well, yeah, I thought the head was sacrosanct, but anyway.
He doesn't have one, apparently.
No, that's right. Look, of the rest, I felt like David McKay tried to create some run at times.
He had a very specific job to
Well, he was on
try
side
and
bottom
quell
for a while.
Side bottom. And he actually did that pretty good in the first half.
Yeah.
Then I think we moved him around a little bit, and then side bottom, of course, came into the game. Yeah.
Pretty strange selection. Chase Jones, as we mentioned earlier, once he got moved into an appropriate position, he played well. Bryce Gibbs, I'm willing to say, should probably not play another game of football for our club.
He's terrible.
He's a waste of space, Macca. He's a waste of space.
It looked like a melting glacier. That's a speedy booze.
I know, I understand all the issues around Bryce this year, but the simple fact is that he's turned up and picked up his paycheck for some pretty average performances, and that was one of his worst. Sauce Jacobs, I felt was, he's been
tired.
Well, he's been a good servant of the club, and congratulations on getting to the 200, but I wouldn't like to see him in our ruck stocks next year, whether he retires or whether he goes to a lower club.
No, he actually looked really tired in the first quarter.
Yeah, so why play him?
I don't think he should have been playing at all. Yeah.
This is the thing, It's obvious to me that we played two ruckmen to get Sauce to the 200. And the reason why we picked O'Brien is because we wanted to go back to that structure that we had before with the second ruck playing key forward. But we didn't pick Jenkins to play that. So Jenkins is obviously out. I didn't hear how he went in the SANFL this week.
He has to be out.
But Jenkins was the obvious choice to play, his usual ruck forward role. But we ended up playing Riley O'Brien forward half the time, who can't kick to save his bloody life for goals. So
he can most of the time, but occasionally he gets that one, that real clanger, which is what he did.
Yeah.
No, just having a look. So we only kicked 4 goals in the SANFL, and Jenkins was not one of them. Where is he on the list? Oh, he's all the way down here. He only had 8 disposals.
Yeah, he's gone. Who did we play this week?
Bulldogs.
Yeah, he's gone, Jenkins. To turn up and have 8 touches in the SANFL, forget about
it. It was horrible weather, but then again, Matthew Wright got 34 disposals.
Jenkins would have been rucking half the time. How can he get 8 touches? Come on. He's out. Lukey Brown really struggled when he was isolated, but no fault of his own probably. His disposal efficiency was not great. It wasn't one of Luke's better games.
No, one of his worst actually.
Foggs again showed why he's so valuable. 3 goals from 11 touches and 5 marks. Just looks like he's going to be something. Darcy.
I thought, limited amount of touches in terms of what he got, but I still had him in our best players. I thought that given what he was, the duel that he was handed by the rest of the boys, I thought that he did as good as he could have done, and you can't ask for more than that. And he's going to be a very, very good player for us for a long, long time. Yep,
absolutely. Tex, I thought, tried.
He did try. We ignored him again often when he was in a better position. I don't know if he's got BO or what he's got, but they ignore him so often.
Well, no, the thing is that when Tex leads, he's actually in front of the ball carrier, and our instruction is obviously not to kick the ball forward. So it's useless. Tex needs to actually run up level with the ball carrier and then lead behind. That's correct, Macca. And then he'd probably get a few more.
We'll have to redirect him.
Tom Lynch was a big disappointment. He hasn't come back well from his last injury. Did his obligatory kick into the man. I'd be ready to.
I've been so annoyed at Lynchy.
I'd be ready to let Tom go.
Yes.
Look, I'd probably keep him, to be honest, because I think that with the right surroundings around him, he could still play good footy, but. I wouldn't lose a lot of sleep if he went, though.
I don't know what you keep him for, Macca.
Well, you've got to keep somebody.
To stop Ben Davis playing.
Exactly.
Well, Ben Davis may or may not be ready. I don't know, but
We've got a few others.
There's going to be so many other players going, I think, or should be going, that you can't get rid of the whole lot in one go.
Well, no, but when I say get rid of, maybe I mean more just get out of the first 22. Because you're right, you can't get rid of everyone. But look, I think this particular performance, Mac, just to expand on that, was just one that showed categorically, in my opinion, that this squad, this 22, this core group of 22 odd players, is done, is absolutely done.
There needs to be changes,
and I think that the main area that there needs to be changes is in our midfield. And that's the two Crouch boys. Sorry to say.
Well, I don't see the replacement, so.
Well, I see the replacements at other clubs.
Yep.
Oh, if you bring in players from other clubs, maybe, but.
Well, that's what trading's all about, Mac.
I think we're in for my, if I was in charge of the club, it would be in for a major rebuild, and it'd probably take 3 years to get to where you really want to get to be the side you want it to be.
Oh, there's no doubt. There's no doubt, Mac. I don't think we're going to contend. If the club tries to go for a quick turnaround, we're going to end up being in that 5th to 8th position again. Because let's face it, we do have some talent. We do have players with ability. It's not as we made a grand final. It's not as if they're all hacks, right? But they're a little bit older and a little bit slower and a little bit more injured. And I think the coaching plan needs a massive overhaul. But I think where we lack is we've got too many players on the peripheral, like Lockie Murphy and Richard Douglas and these blokes, who we just don't get enough out of. So we're really relying on a core group of players to do a lot of the heavy lifting. It's not an even enough spread. And I think one of the key elements of our 2017 year was, and I remember having this conversation at the beginning of that season, and talking about how many different players we could rotate through the midfield and how versatile we looked and how many different looks we could give the opposition and all that sort of stuff. And all of a sudden, that versatility is completely gone. And we're slower and we're lacking confidence. And I think as a group of players, it's probably less of a comment on their ability and more a comment on just the dynamic within the group, that it just needs to be refreshed.
Well, I'm not in disagreement with the principle of what you're saying, but there'll be certain players I think that go before them. In terms of Jenkins is obviously going to go, Douglas, and if I went through them, there'd be 4 or 5 that can't possibly be there next year. And Jacobs, I wouldn't even keep Jacobs there either. I think you got to have an age cutoff point. We
used to.
Well, I'm Eddie Betts. I'd if I could get a decent deal out the Gold Coast for Eddie Betts, he'd be gone too. I've got no I've got no favourites I want to keep, but I want to keep at least. You can't just have 18 youngsters running around there and getting destroyed like Gold Coast do. You've got to try and keep a core on each line of somebody that can actually help those kids come along and be the players that we want them to be.
But we've got those players, Macca. I mean, in defence, I think we've got Luke Brown and Talia.
We have, no doubt about that, yeah.
I think in the middle, I think Sloan is that person.
Definitely.
And maybe Matt Crouch if he stays. And up forward, I think Tex is well and truly still got something to offer in terms of mentorship. I would really, really, really like to see Tex and Sloaney give away the captaincy next year. I'd just like to see a fresh look and allow Tex and Sloan just to concentrate on their game, and that also then allows a little bit more flexibility in terms of selection.
No, but what I'm saying, I wouldn't trade both Crouches. I'd trade if you're going to trade it. I'd trade one, not both. And
Well, Brad's the
you
one to
know,
trade.
well, he's got good. He's going to have excellent currency. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, because on the surface he gets more of the ball. He's the higher rated player. I mean, I think my thoughts are that Matt's probably the more consistent player. But I could see a lower end team like St Kilda maybe looking at someone like a Brad Crouch.
Yeah, but I don't know what I'm saying. I'm not against trading any of them, but I just it's got to be done in stages in the sense of re. I like the way what Sydney have done it. Sydney have, although they haven't won a lot of games, they still look like a decent football team in the sense even when they lose, because they've been rebuilding on the run and they keep some experienced players on each line, and the rest of the team is filled up with young blokes learning their trade. So they still, and they haven't won a lot of games, but they still look like a reasonable football side. And I don't mind if we finish 14th or 15th or something like that, as long as we can play respectable football without necessarily winning. If we're rebuilding to achieve a lot better in the future than what we've been doing, we've been hanging around that middle pack for far too long. And when we do have a little breakout year, when we always mess it up anyhow. So it's 21 years, and I think it's time to start again. How sad is that?
Well, Macca, the time to start again was last season, right? And this is where I was so annoyed, because last season we were able to put that season down to, the camp and blah, 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 and everyone was still riding on the back of 2017. But if the club and the selection committee and the match committee were being completely honest and objective with themselves, they would have seen the writing on the wall for a couple of players. And we had all that South Australian talent in the draft last season, all of it. Let's count them: Rankin, Lukosius, Valenti, Rosie, Haitley. Who's the other lad? There was one other lad. One other guy. Anyway, 5 or 6 players in the top 25 or so in that draft. And we had currency in terms of picks. We had currency in terms of players. And if we had been bloody honest with ourselves, if the list management committee had been impartial and objective, then they would have used that draft to refresh our list.
As Port did. And here we are now a year later. The draft is weaker. They say after the first 2 or 3, it's pretty even and, a bit hit and miss. And we're choosing to refresh in this draft year. Now, why? And with less trade currency, because our players are a little bit more exposed in terms of their abilities, and, we don't have the camp argument as an excuse anymore. So blokes like Rory Atkins would have lost a bit of currency. Josh Jenkins would have lost a bit of currency. There's 3 or 4 of them that would have lost a bit of currency as a consequence of us holding for another 12 months. And here we are now in a weaker draft with less currency, faced with the prospect of rebuilding our list. It's terribly disappointing, and it's just another nail in the coffin of our football department in terms of how they've managed the operations from a football perspective of our club. Well, my opinion, Thane, you get 100% support on those comments from me. 100%.
Yep. It's disappointing because, and we'll talk about this as the weeks unfold. Certainly, during the final series, we'll spend a fair bit of time talking about our list, I reckon. But as it stands now, whether we make the finals or not, I think is irrelevant. We won't do any damage in the finals. There's a number of things got to happen, and I'll just reiterate to people as we finish up the cast for the night. I'll reiterate to people that our open letter to the club is still open on our website at aflcrowcast.com. There's links everywhere, and I'll drop a few links on Facebook and Twitter. Again, But go and sign our open letter to the club. We will be forwarding it to the club at the end of the season. I think it's worthwhile just throwing a weight behind it. The other news that I've got is that I heard from Ian Shuttleworth on Friday afternoon. He's undertaken to try and finish our list of questions, Nikki, and have it back to us. So by the end of the weekend, now I haven't checked my emails over the last little while, but I'm hopeful that we'll have that by Tuesday night. So we'll be able to play, albeit belatedly, we'll be able to play that interview from Andrew Fagan that was recorded before the Port game, and talk about some of the answers that are provided by the club for what it's worth. And I think the Fagan interview I think might be interesting, Nick, because that was just before the shit hit the fan.
Yep.
It's I'm disappointed it's taken so long. And I understand that the club has been busy, but let's not forget it was the club that actually invited us down this year. We didn't pursue them; they pursued us.
We actually got it back in timely to them.
Yeah, we did. Anyway, never mind. And we've also got a bit of a sneaky one as well. We've got a recording another interview later this week that's going to be quite fascinating. Not a player, not a coach, not anyone employed by the Adelaide Football Club.
The janitor?
And yet someone with a particular vested interest and a very, very good knowledge of the football landscape and also the Adelaide Football Club. So hopefully, that interview will be recorded later in the week. And
you got me intrigued, mate.
So that'll be on the following week. I just don't want to say the name yet because we haven't finalised arrangements, but I've certainly spoken to the person, and it seems like it's going to be goer. People will enjoy that one. So, look, as we finish up for the night, thanks everyone again, as usual, for joining us. Thanks everyone on the Spreaker chat for joining us, and also people joining us on Facebook and YouTube. Things are changing at the CrowCast, and we'll have more information about that over the coming weeks. But in the meantime, get around all the Crows podcasts, the Crowject, Two Crows, just Crow's Nest podcast, and wherever you get on, whether it be on Facebook or on Twitter, or on one of those podcasts or our podcast, just be a supporter and let the club know that we need change. We need to see change. And if you feel inclined, go to our website, aflcrowcast.com, and sign that open letter, and let's see what we can do as a collective group of supporters. Nikki and Macca, thanks very much for joining me on a Sunday night.
Pleasure as always.
We're actually lucky because I had the biggest thunder clap at my house at about 4 o'clock this afternoon and knocked out all my electricity.
Same. Oh, no, I still kept my electricity. It scared the crap out of my cats.
Yeah, we got knocked out, and I was glad that everything came back because it was looking a bit dodgy for a while there. All right, which one of you are with me on Tuesday night for Tuesday Night Live?
I think you've got Nikki. Nikki, I want you to be merciless.
And I always?
All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. And Tuesday night, 8:30 on Spreaker, Facebook, and YouTube. We'll see everyone there. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah,
no. All right, Spill. Who are you going to interview?